Hi everyone, Mary here from Croyden Crochet. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to crochet my classic ribbed beanie. This is a quick and easy beanie pattern that makes for a perfect last minute gift, and with just a few adjustments, it can be crocheted in any size.
And while you're here, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you can receive all of my latest patterns.
So let's talk a little bit about the materials you're going to need for this beanie pattern. I'm going to be using We Crochet or Knit Picks wool of the Andes, and this is a sport weight yarn, which is a number 2, so it is very light, and it's 137 yards. And if you look on the back here, this is 100% Peruvian Highland wool. So if you are allergic to wool, you can certainly use any other acrylic or any other yarn that you have on hand. Just to make sure that it is a number 2 or a sport weight yarn. So like I said, if you have something else, you can certainly use that. And with this yarn, I'm going to be using a size G or a 4mm crochet hook. You're also going to need a pair of scissors. You're going to need just a needle or darning needle to weave in just a few ends. And you definitely are going to need a fabric measuring tape. And that is because you can make this beanie any size you want, but you are going to need to know the measurements. So before we get started, let's talk a little bit about the measurements. First, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to measure in inches from the center of your crown, which is the top center of your head, to the bottom of your earlobe. And this is going to determine the height of your beanie. So that's going to be how many chains you're going to make. So let me bring this here. So when I say the height of your beanie, right here you can see this is where I'm working. And we're going to be working in rows like this. But in order to know how many we need to chain, you're going to need to know the length. So like I mentioned, the top of your crown to the bottom of your earlobe. And for me, this was 8 inches. And then I added another inch just for a little bit of a slouch. So if you want a little bit more of a slouch that you see in the pictures, you can add 2 inches or 3 inches, however many you want. So whatever that length is, that's how long you're going to make your chain. And then the amount of rows that you work is going to be the circumference of your head. And the nice thing about this is you can try this on as you go along. So you can just keep working in rows and you can just keep putting it around your head or whoever it is that you're working for. And then you can get a really nice fit because you can just kind of try it on as you go. So I'm going to be working this beanie pattern up in a woman's size. So a size that would fit even a tween or an adult woman. So let's get started on our chain. So to get a 9-inch in height, which is pretty standard for most beanie patterns with a little bit of slouch, we are going to chain 41. So we're going to start with our slip knot. And this here is just another colorway in the wool of the Andes. And this, I believe, is their Sprinkle Heather. And if you are interested in this specific yarn, I can put the link for that down in the description below. Okay. So like I mentioned, to get a 9-inch in height for a women's large or a women's adult, you are going to need to chain 41. Yarn over, through, yarn over, pull through. That's 3, 4, 5, and just keep working your chain until you have a total of 41 chains. Okay, so I just finished chaining 41. So we're going to start on our first row. And if you've seen any of my other videos, you know that I like to work in the back bumps of my chain. You don't have to do this. This is just something that I prefer. So I am going to be working in the back bumps. And so for our first stitch, we're going to be working in that second chain from our hook. And we're going to make a yarn over slip stitch. So we're going to yarn over. We're going to insert our hook into that back bump, yarn over and pull up a loop. So you will have 3 loops on your hook, and you're going to pull that first loop here through these 2 loops. So just like that. And that's called a yarn over slip stitch. So let's try that again. We're going to yarn over, insert our hook into that next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. Take this first loop and pull it through the last 2. And sometimes what I like to do, especially for this foundation chain, is I like to kind of grab it here and then pull it through, just like that. So we're going to continue making a yarn over slip stitch into the back bumps of every single one of these chains. So yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, pull that first loop through those last 2. All right, so continue making a yarn over slip stitch all the way until you get to the end of your chain. Okay, so I just finished my last stitch here of my chain. So to start row 2, we're going to chain 1 and turn. And we're going to make, in this first stitch here, a yarn over slip stitch. Yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, pull that first loop through those last 2 loops. Okay. Now in the next stitch, we're actually going to be working in the back loop. So I'm just turning my work a little bit towards me so you can see that there is a front loop here, and then there's a back loop. And we're going to be working in this back loop. Okay. So in the back loop, we're going to be making a yarn over slip stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook only into that back loop and pull up a loop. 3 loops on your hook, pull that first loop through the last 2 loops. Okay. And we're just going to continue working in the back loop of every stitch across with our yarn over slip stitch. So insert your hook into that back loop, pull that first loop through the last 2. So you're going to be working in the back loop all the way across, and then in this last stitch here, you're going to work through both loops. And the reason why I like to work in the first stitch and in the last stitch through both loops is because I just feel it gives a cleaner edge. And this edge here is actually what's going to be shown. It's going to be a free edge that you're going to be able to see. So I like it to be a little bit cleaner. So go ahead and work across your row, working in the back loop only, your yarn over slip stitches, and I will meet back up with you. All right, so I just finished row 2, and in this last stitch, like I said, you're just going to work through both loops. And essentially what you're going to do for the rest of your beanie is you're just going to be repeating row 2. So you're just going to chain 1, turn your work. In that first stitch, you're going to work through both loops, making a yarn over slip stitch. And then in every stitch across, you're just going to work in the back loops until you get to the last one, and you're going to work through both loops. And eventually, what you're going to get is something that looks like this. You can see it's pretty big here. And my rectangle here is actually 18 across, and this is 9 inches high. So the circumference of my head was actually 21 inches. And because this does make for a very stretchy fabric, I didn't want to make it in 21 inches because then it would be way too big. So I had to subtract about 3 inches so I could get a nice fit. Now again, this is completely adjustable, so however many rows that you want to crochet, that's totally up to you. So once you are done with your rows, we are going to slip stitch these free edges up the side here, and I will show you how to do that. And then we're going to cinch the top. Okay, so I have my rectangle here, and I'm just going to take my fabric measuring tape just to double check that this is roughly about 9 inches in height, and it's about 18 across. Okay, so now we're going to slip stitch our short edges together. So when you do this, you're going to make sure that you are laying your work flat with the right side facing you. And the right side is always going to be when your tail is the bottom left corner right here. And I also wanted to mention that when you are crocheting your rows, make sure that you end on an odd number of rows. And you will know that it is an odd number if you end on the same edge as your tail. So to reach my 18 inches across, I crocheted 81 rows. All right, so now let's get to slip stitching these short edges together. So we're just going to fold them in like this. And we're just going to kind of turn our work. And there's many different ways to slip stitch these short edges together. I'm just going to show you the way that works best for me. If you have your own way of doing it, that's totally fine. So to get started, I'm going to insert my hook into the last stitch here of the row under both loops, and I'm going to take this loop here from my other edge, and I'm just going to grab it with my hook, and I'm going to pull it through that stitch just like that. Then I'm going to chain 1, right? I'm going to insert my hook right back into that last stitch. And then I'm going to insert my hook into the last stitch of this other edge that's away from me. Right? And then we're just going to slip stitch just like that. Then I'm going to go on to the next stitch. I'm now going to insert my hook into both loops of this edge here, the one that's closest to me, and then the back loop of the edge that's farthest from me. So the back loop here. And this is going to create a nice even seam. So you're going to insert your hook into both loops here, and then the back loop of the other edge. just like that. So just continue working across until you get all the way across your row. And then in the last edge here, so you have your 2 stitches here, you're going to work through both loops like you did when we started. Alright, so I just finished slip stitching up the side here, and I worked through the last 2 stitches on both edges here. And then what I did is I went ahead and cut my yarn. You're going to want to leave about 12 inches or so. And then what I'm going to do is chain 1 and just pull that yarn through, just like this. And we're going to use this yarn here to cinch up the top of our beanie. So I'm going to grab my darning needle here. I'm just going to work it through. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to be working my needle in and then out all the way around. So there really is no designated stitch or area to work your needle in and out. So you're just going to find an area that works best. So I'm just going to try to get to the edge as close as possible. I'm going to work in and then out. And how much space you leave in between, I want to leave maybe like 1/2 inch to 1 inch. And you're just going to keep weaving it in and out all the way around. And this will allow us to be able to cinch the top of our beanie shut. All right. So just continue working your needle in and out all the way around your beanie until you come back to the center here. All right, so I just finished weaving my needle in and out. Now I'm back here at the beginning. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull on this tail here. And this is going to allow us to cinch the top of our beanie. You're just going to try to get it as tight as possible, but just remember this is a very thin yarn, so don't pull too tight. Okay. And you may have a little tiny hole here, which is totally fine, because then we're just going to go and we're just going to try to use our needle here. And we're just going to work our needle through the hole to just shut it. And this is the wrong side of our work. I just wanted to point that out. So don't worry about anything showing or looking ugly or whatever. That's all going to be hidden. Sorry, this slipped off my needle here. So just work your needle across. You're just going to try to sew up that tiny hole as best that you can. Just like this, just working through the edges here. Okay. I think I'm just about done. All right, and I don't want to cut this yarn yet because I'm going to turn it inside out just to make sure that I actually closed it. All right, so let's turn this beanie right side out. Yep, and that looks pretty good. Okay. You might have to finagle with it a little bit so it kind of forms correctly. There we go. All right. You will see here that you have a nice ribbed look to your beanie. And you're just going to make sure that you go ahead and weave in your tail here and then the tail where you started. And hopefully this will be a nice fit when you put it on. So I hope that you guys liked this tutorial for my ribbed beanie. It really is just a nice kind of classic beanie look. And this is a unisex design, so it can be for anyone. And it really is just a nice quick project. So if you have any questions, like always, please use the description below to be able to ask me some questions. And I will do my best to get back to you if you are confused about anything that I showed you in this tutorial. Thanks, everyone.
Be sure to click the subscribe button to my YouTube channel to receive all of my latest videos and updates.